Every single person who knows what's going on in Ukraine needs to be able to speak about this, needs to be able to explain to the whole world why we support Ukraine. Sometimes, and keep in mind, especially in the rallies of our opponents, the Russophiles and the apologists who claim that Ukraine should surrender, but sometimes in those rallies we speak with them and we ask them why they stand there, why they stand with Russia, why they defend exactly the same points as the Russian terrorist regime does, whilst at the same time with a straight face claiming that they are neutral. How can that be? How can somebody defend every single point Hitler made in Mein Kampf, but at the same time with a straight face say that they're not a Nazi? How can anybody do that? But in the Russian case, the actual Russian terrorist regime does not even care to hide their real intentions. They're right there. They say them loud and clear every single time that they want to bring back the Soviet Union and they want to expand their influence to the decadent West, as they call it. On their tanks, they ride to Kyiv, to Lviv, but also to Berlin, to London, to Washington. No place is out of bounds for the insane ambitions of the Russian terrorist regime. No place is beyond their ambition. That is what everybody needs to remember. We have had enough. These mistakes are very silly, my friends. These ideas that we can appease Russia, we can deal with Russia, we can negotiate with Russia, are idiotic. We can't continue to believe in the people who spew this nonsense. We can't keep believing in the individuals who claim to be on our side, who claim to stand on the side of peace, but don't offer a single solution to the wars that are going on. And in the rare case that they do offer a solution, their solutions are terrifying. So Ukraine, the country that had many of its regions annexed by Russia, should simply go right ahead and give up those regions. Is that really the solution in this situation? Is that not what happened in 2014, before this great escalation by the Russian terrorist regime? It is. And yet, unfortunately, some people have goldfish memories. And coincidentally, a lot of the people who seem to have those goldfish memories also have very fat pockets with little R's sticking out of it. R's for ruble. That is what we see all over the place. And one of the people in Europe with the fattest pockets is Viktor Orban, as we of course have already mentioned it many times. An infamous character. A character who claims that Ukraine is unfit to join the EU, unfit to join NATO. Whilst Orban is in complete odds with the views of the EU and of NATO on almost every single occasion.
Even though he's a member.
Even though he's a member, exactly. But that could potentially change. Because we have nothing against the Hungarian people. But my friends, this is an issue that involves everybody. And it is about time that the Hungarian people woke up at last and started seeing Viktor Orban for what he really is. A Russophile shill, an individual who fills up his pockets with Russian money and throws every little bit of a future that his country might have had down the drain. That is not somebody that anybody should want to be their leader. That is not somebody that we would like to rule us either. But the truth of the matter remains, my friends. These Viktor Orbans are not isolated cases. There are still many, unfortunately, many politicians who continue to parrot the same Moscovite ideals, who continue to defend the same nonsense that they speak about on their state-owned media, or at least on some of their state-owned media. It's very interesting. I would really invite everybody here who can find Russian television, the Russian propaganda with some subtitles. And of course, for the people who understand Russian, they don't even have to do that. Find some of that propaganda and compare some of the things they say. It's very interesting. It's like the Twilight Zone. Sometimes they say one thing, sometimes they say the exact opposite. But in their insane worldview, that's supposed to make sense. Now, I'm not saying that the actual propagandists believe in that. No. We've seen it many times over that propagandists do not believe in their propaganda. A very good example of this is Tucker Carlson, an individual who was attacking the Ukrainian people for a very long time now. A very devious and despicable individual who has been caught lying about his allegations on supposed voter fraud in the US. He was exposed. Voice recordings of him were exposed where he was admitting that all of it was a lie, and he knew it. He knew they were lying. He knew there was no voter fraud. And yet he continued to say exactly the same thing over and over again. And he still says it right now. And it is proof that certainly we have some problems in the West for sure. And proof of that is that some people still believe in individuals like Tucker Carlson. Some people still believe in their nonsense. Some people still follow them. They would follow them to hell if they could. And some of them most likely will. Because if hell does exist, then these people are certainly worthy of it. My friends, we have to understand that what we're dealing with now is not something we can solve with kind words and appeals for peace. The free world has forgotten what it means to be at war. It has forgotten the price of peace, the price of prosperity, the price of freedom. Tomorrow and the day after, we have Remembrance Day, on Sunday in particular. Tomorrow is the Armistice Day. We need to remember the price of this freedom we have right now on those 2 days. We have to honor the people who have died and the people who have fought against those individuals, those evil individuals, the psychopathic regimes of the past who tried to take away those freedoms. But alas, unfortunately, very similar psychopathic regimes are rising right now. And we must be extra wary of the individuals in our own ranks who claim to be on our side, but who perpetually support other psychopathic regimes. All of these Russias and North Koreas and Irans, and the many proxies they control, the many terrorist organizations they control. We have to see this reality clearly. And finally, when we acknowledge it, we will be able to fix it. But we cannot live in self-delusion. We cannot imagine that we are better and more moral than anybody else in the world, and the same rules don't apply to us. It doesn't matter if you live in the free world or in an authoritarian country. If you're shot, you will bleed and you could die. If you're getting shot from cover, you're not going to stand proudly with your chest exposed to the world and march into them to show how much better you are. That would be idiotic. We must not do that. We have to think outside of the box to deal with countries like Russia, Iran, and North Korea, because they most certainly are thinking outside the box. They have far less power than the free world. Why is it then that they still are allowed to wage their wars against their neighbors? Why is it that they still have influence in their regions, especially Russia and Iran? As we know, North Korea, fortunately, does not have much of an influence in the region. But even still, right now North Korea is trading with Russia and sending them millions of shells to help attack Ukraine. And we keep hearing this same rhetoric again and again that supposedly nobody has anything to send us. Why is it that some countries like the UK need to be the ones to break this ice and to finally show willingness to help? When many countries were dragging their feet and saying that sending tanks to Ukraine would be too much, the UK sent their Challenger tanks. When many countries were once again dragging their feet and saying that sending long-range missiles to Ukraine would be too much, the UK sent us their Storm Shadows. For that, we are grateful. And let's not forget that if we want to win this war, we need to actually say it out loud. We can't keep saying that we want to prevent Ukraine from losing. We need to say, we want Ukraine to win. Слава Україні! Слава нації! Україна! 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 Героям України тричі! Слава! 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 Ворогам України тричі! Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
Та я скажу